So I'll share. Okay, I don't know why this is taking forever here. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, two signature here. Okay. All right. Okay. So the signature assignment is, and we've mentioned this before about how that you probably have signature assignments in your other classes that you're taking. Like if let's say like, like it's a history class or some of your other classes, you've probably seen this type of assignment before. And so let me kind of explain a little bit about what, the signature assignment is and what it's for. I think I've mentioned before how that the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, which is the state board that oversees higher education in Texas, they want to ensure that students are learning, certain skills, not just the material that, that you're supposed to learn in the classes, but also certain skills that you're supposed to take away from these classes, and then you can apply them to to your actual life. Like we talked about those like critical thinking skills, personal responsibility, social responsibility. So what this signature assignment does is that it is a way to measure all of those objectives in one complete assignment, as opposed to maybe like doing multiple things throughout the class. We have this one assignment that does that. Okay, and it's a pretty interesting assignment actually. It's one that students do like to do because it's something that that you all get to choose in terms of what you want to write about, right? Um, and so and like I've said before, this assignment is kind of like a capstone assignment where you take everything that you've learned throughout the class and you apply it to this assignment here. So when we're looking at our signature assignment for Government 2305, it's a letter of concern on a national issue to a currently elected U.S. senator or representative. Okay, so let's kind of go over this and then we'll break it down a bit. Excuse me. It is way too early, but it's okay. So the assignment requires that you write a letter to any one of the two United States congressional senators representing Texas, or any U.S. congressional representative representing Texas. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Okay, so and then of course it says, find out who they are that conveys, and so what you're going to do is you're going to pick a member of the Congress, either your two U.S. senators or a U.S. representative that represents Texas. Now, you don't necessarily have to write to your own Texas House member, which is Filemon Vela. We've mentioned him before. But I guess I would prefer that because, if and the reason for that is because now, like I said, you're not actually going to send this letter. I mean, you can if you want to. I mean, I've had some students, yes, they do send it. It's not required for you to send it. It's like a mock letter, but if you want to send it, you're more than welcome to do so. But what you're going to do is you're going to be creating this mock letter, and you're going to be sending it to our two U.S. senators, either Ted Cruz or John Cornyn, or you're going to send it to a House member. Again, it doesn't have to be Filemon Vela. I mean, the reason why I feel like it would be best for you to do is, let's say you actually were going to send that letter. Um, I'm sorry, to hear your concern if you are a constituent that he represents. So if I send a letter to like Louis Gohmert over there in Nacogdoches, I mean, he's going to be like, who's this guy from the Valley? Like, I don't represent him. So which, I mean, they shouldn't act like that because they're still public officials and they still serve the public. I am still a member of the public. You get what I'm saying is that if you really were to send it, then it would be it would be more likely to be read by your member of Congress that actually represents you. But again, you don't have to. I'm just saying that if I guess if you were like doing this for real, that would be the better route to go, is to actually write to if you wanted to write to your House member, to write to the House member that actually represents you. But again, you don't have to because this is a mock letter. Okay. So what you're gonna do again, you're gonna pick one of these members of Congress, and you're going to write a letter that conveys and analyzes your concerns about a national issue. So that's the key thing, is that it has to be a national issue, because this is government 2305. If it was Texas government, then you would be writing about a state or local issue. But because this is a federal government, you're going to be writing about a national issue. Okay. Now, the letter of concern will demonstrate. Now, let me also say one thing. Don't get too bogged down into like whether it's a national or local issue, because remember when we covered federalism and remember pretty much everything is kind of all mixed up already anyway. Like, the national government is involved in state issues and local issues when it comes to the money and all this and that. So what I'm trying to say is that whatever issue that you pick, it most likely is probably going to be a national issue as well. Um, but if something doesn't make sense, let me know, so that way, we can talk about that. Like, let me give you an example. So let's say you wanted to write about, the impacts of COVID-19. Now, that is a state issue, but also a national issue, because, the vaccine rollout has been a national issue in conjunction with the state. But let's say you wanted to write specifically about how Governor Abbott has handled COVID. Okay, that's no longer a national issue, that's just a state issue. So that would be something more for Texas government, because now you're not writing about what you're writing about isn't really a federal issue. Now it's more of a state issue. But if you wanted to write about the vaccine rollout, that's more of a national issue. So does that kind of make sense? I mean, I know that might be a little bit confusing, but look, at the same time, if you're not sure, you can talk to me, and then I can let you know if that would count as a national issue. But again, the reason why it's important that you pick a national issue is because this is federal government. Okay. So again, the letter of concern will demonstrate. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about everybody. This has been a long semester. It's been tough with all these classes, but I'm hanging in there. Don't worry, and it's not your fault. Don't worry. So anyway, the letter of concern will demonstrate your ability to effectively communicate by developing and writing an executive summary that identifies, integrates, critically analyzes. Don't get scared about all these words. Don't worry. It's stuff that it's just a fancy way of saying it, and makes recommendations for a solution to an issue that is based on considering the origins, facts, processes, inputs. Again, it's fancy terminology. Don't worry too much about it, because you're going to know how to do this. Public opinion, interest groups, political parties, and the intercultural communities they serve, and the ethical consequences for the issue and recommendations. Okay, so this next part, this is what the breakdown of the letter is going to look like. Okay, this is how you're going to write it. Okay, so it's important that we go over this so that you know exactly how to compose this letter. There's also a rubric that is also included in your Canvas that basically reiterates, what we're going to talk about here. So this is how you're going to be evaluated. So address the following criteria for the letter you will write. Research the issue and find a constitutional solution to the problem, and develop an ethical strategy that can be used to help implement your policy solution. So what you're going to have to do is, yes, you're going to have to do a little bit of research on the national issue that you're going, to pick, right? And what you're going to do is, from your research, you're going to come up with a solution to this problem. And through that solution, you're also going to come up with an ethical strategy that will be used to help, to put that solution into practice. So you want to make sure that the solution that you pick, that it is ethical, that it does fall within, ethical lines, and that that it's something that is also consistent with the Constitution, right? You can't like, an example would be, like, let's say if you wanted to write about the gun issue, you can't ban all guns, right? Because we have the Second Amendment, right? So you want to make sure that the solution that you pick is constitutional and that it's also ethical. Okay. So please stop me if any of this does not make sense, right? Because this is where we're going to get into like the real meat of this letter here. Okay. So when we look at number 1, so you're going to identify and analyze either a civil liberties, civil rights, or foreign or domestic social / economic policy issue, or controversy. Okay, so you're going to be, so again, you have a wide range of options in terms of what you can pick in terms of what topics you would want to write about. And what we'll do is I'll give you all an example so that way you all can, I'll pick a topic. I mean, you don't have to write about this one, but I'm just going to pick a topic for example purposes, and we're gonna break down that issue, through through this example. We're going to break down that issue according to what we're seeing here in terms of the requirements here. Okay, so let's go with let's see, or let me see. Let's think of one. Okay, let's just go with immigration. Okay, I mean, you can be more. There's different things in immigration, like the border wall or border security things, but let's just go with immigration, just general. Okay, so okay, and this for examples. I mean, you all can write about this is just for examples. Okay, so we're gonna go with immigration as our example. Okay, demonstrate why. And again, I'm very sorry. I'm so sorry. I went to bed early last night because I wasn't feeling too well, and and I'm still tired, but it's okay. So demonstrate why this is a national issue and not a state issue. Okay, so immigration. Immigration is a national issue because if we remember Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, we talked about the duties and responsibilities of Congress, right? We talked about how that's Congress's job description. Remember that one of those provisions is immigration. That they, it's called naturalization, and it's a different word, but basically that's what it means. It means immigration. So because immigration is mentioned as a power and responsibility of Congress in Article 1, Section 8, that is why immigration is a national issue. It's also a national issue because immigration and border security is enforced by the federal government. The Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection, those agencies, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, those agencies are federal agencies. So the federal government is responsible for setting immigration law and then enforcing it. Okay, number 3, explain how this issue is related to the origin and development of a constitutional democracy in the United States. Make sure to provide background on the issue and how it relates to the constitutional foundations, amendments of the U.S. Bill of Rights. Okay, so again, going back to, and some of these are going to kind of repeat themselves a little bit. So as long as you are able to go into detail about how it's related to the Constitution, you're more than welcome to do so. So when we're talking about like immigration, obviously you have to look at, the constitutional issue about citizenship, right? And, eligibility for citizenship. So if you wanted to write about immigration, I would look that up. I would look up, what were the requirements, what were citizenship requirements in the United States back when our country was founded? That would be something that I would suggest to take a look at. Also look to how this relates to the Bill of Rights when we look at, especially when it comes to like, searches and seizures, right? And because we see that a lot, especially when it comes to like, border checkpoints and all that. There's a Supreme Court case that came out that ruled that border checkpoints are legal, because some people felt that it violated the Fourth Amendment, but the Supreme Court has ruled that it doesn't, although some people disagree with that. So maybe look up that. Maybe look up, because that's another clue that I would give you all, is that maybe look up the Supreme Court case that talks about the border checkpoints. You all know the border checkpoints, right? Like when we leave the valley, we have to, if you're leaving from Brownsville, it's up there over in Sarita, and if you're leaving from McAllen, it's up there in Falfurrias, and all that. So right. So maybe that could be something that you could tie into immigration as to why the checkpoints are there and why they're legal. Okay, number 4, evaluate how different people in our society may be affected by the specific issue. What is the public's as well as certain groups like interest groups and political parties' opinion on the matter? Okay, this is an easy one because this is an easy one. Immigration is one of the most talked about issues in our current political climate today. And it's been a big issue for many, many years. I remember when I was a little kid, hearing about, watching the news when my mom I would watch it with her, and we would hear about immigration on the news. We live in the Valley. We see that is that is constantly a big topic. I mean, especially now with an increase in apprehensions at the border, right? We've been seeing a surge in activity of undocumented immigrants trying to cross. I mean, and a lot of them have been wanting to seek asylum. So that's been in the news a lot. So look at that in terms of how does how do people in society view that issue? What are the different viewpoints? I mean, um, how do you feel about that? Maybe how does your family feel about that? How do your friends feel about that? Do you have friends that are you know are I guess don't reveal their document, maybe, but you have like friends that are dreamers. Like I have friends that are dreamers. Something that could be that you could go into. Um, Look at again, like what is the public opinion about immigration? Maybe look at some polls about how people feel about immigration. Um, Certain interest groups. Maybe look at like maybe like LULAC would be an example. The League of United Latin American Citizens. Obviously, they have strong opinions about immigration, obviously because of their background. And then look at the political parties. Look at the between the Republicans and the Democrats. How they view immigration, and you'll definitely see that they view it very differently. Of course, we had former President Trump with his wanting to pursue his border wall and all that. So yeah, so there's plenty that you can put in there for number 4 here. You know, um, and so let's take a look at number 5 here. Okay, so identify. So again, so does all this make sense? Like please stop me if any of this does not make sense, because again, it's like I said, it's not hard, but it does require a lot of it does require a lot of different steps, you know what I mean? Like um hold on. Okay, so let's go to number 5. Okay, so identify the branch of government responsible for the policy issue, and if there's part of it implicated in the matter. Okay, so we kind of talked about this, right? We talked about how that Luke and okay. Um, so we talked about that immigration is primarily, a responsibility for the legislative branch, right? Because the legislative branch, and we mean Congress, they are the ones who write immigration law. But of course, as we've seen with separation of powers, that yes, that power is separated, but then the issue itself also requires other branches to become a part of it, right? Like an example would be like the lawmaking process, right? The lawmaking process, and of course we also have the checks and balances that go with it, right? The lawmaking process is not just a congressional issue, right? Because in order for the law to to be official, it has to be signed by the president, right? And it has to be interpreted by the courts to be constitutional if someone brings up an issue. So the same thing here with immigration, right? That immigration, although primarily is a responsibility that belongs to Congress, the executive branch is responsible for enforcing immigration law, and then the courts are responsible for ensuring that immigration law and executive orders are constitutional. Okay, so you could talk about how all 3 branches are involved in immigration. So obviously primarily it starts with the legislative branch, but the executive and judicial also have a role in immigration and how and the results of it. Okay, so then discuss your constitutional solution to the problem and develop an ethical strategy that can be used to help implement your policy solution. Okay, so an example would be like, let's say, we'll pick an easy one. Let's say we want to uh, provide citizenship rights to the Dreamers. Okay, this is obviously something. If you look public opinion polls, you'll see that a vast majority of Americans are in favor of. Um, for Dreamers to stay, not to stay, to become citizens. So this is something that you could propose as your solution here. Okay. And so, of course, you would discuss your solution and develop an ethical strategy in terms of that can be used to help implement your policy solution. So you would talk about, the so again, so you would talk about how you would do so, right? and why the way, how you're going to choose the method in terms of solving this problem. What are the ethics involved in it? Okay. The number 7. Number 7, analyze how your actions you may take regarding this issue may impact the election process, and discuss how the congressional leader's stance on the issue might impact how you vote in the next election. So again, depending on who you're writing to, you'll want to look up, what is their stance on this issue? What is their stance on immigration? What is their stance on the Dreamers? Look that up, and then decide, if, let's say, it's a position that you disagree with, write about how that will impact, you voting for them whenever they're up for re-election. That this is an issue that's important to you, and that you want for your elected officials to, you want to try to convince them to see the issue the way you see it, because if they don't, then, obviously, you're probably not going to support them politically. And then also, of course, again, how may it impact the election process? So, I mean, we just had the presidential election, but we're going to have elections coming up. I mean, so how would the immigration issues, how would that impact the election? Because again, I want you to see like the different political parties and how they see this issue, and look at, how, providing citizenship for the Dreamers, what would that do for a future election? Would that who would that hurt? Who would that help? How much would it hurt and help? Try to see if you can maybe like, so for sure, I would definitely look up, how many Dreamers we have in the country, and then look that up to see like, how that could impact, the election process. And then conclude the letter with why this is a right and responsibility to address this letter to your representative in Congress. So you see what I was talking about, how that this is why I prefer for you all to write to your member of Congress that does serve you, because at the end of the letter, you have to write why you have the right to contact them about this. So again, if I was writing this letter, I'd be writing it to Vicente Gonzalez, because I have the right to contact him because he's my member of Congress. And he, because I am one of his constituents, he's going to need my vote when he's up for re-election. So he does need to listen to what I have to ask of him, for that reason. You know what I mean? So so that pretty much sums up what the letter is going to be comprised of. So what do y'all think so far? I mean, what are what are y'all's thoughts on that? I mean, what do y'all think so far? I mean, does this make sense, or are you all a little bit confused? I mean, let me see what you all think about that. Like what do y'all think? What are your like reactions to this so far?
I don't think it seems like too difficult.
Okay, you don't think it seems too difficult. Okay, so um and yeah, no, exactly. It's not difficult, but like I said, there's a lot of steps to it. But yeah, I mean, and that's why, of course, I wanted to, really go over this and go over this in depth, because, I do get a lot of questions about the signature assignment, and of course that makes sense, because it's definitely something that, you know, um, it's definitely something that, like I said, people might not be. I guess what the questions that I get a lot is a lot of people might not understand, like, you know, what issues, maybe they get like stuck on an issue to pick, but then once they do pick an issue, they're able to go through it pretty good. So if, let's say, you're having trouble, picking an issue, reach out to me and I'll give you some ideas. Like I said, I gave you immigration as an example, but there's plenty of other, issues that you all can write about. And so if you're not sure about an issue, let me know and I'll definitely help you out. So these are some links, some sample letters you can find. Um, and then, okay, so let's go over the letter organization in terms of what it's going to look like. Okay. So you start out by putting the date on the letter. Then you put the address of your selected U.S. senator or representative. They have multiple addresses. They have their Washington D.C. offices, and then they also have like their local offices. So it doesn't matter which one you pick. I mean, because again, you're not really going to send this unless you really want to, but you're going to make it look really nice. Start the letter with the proper salutation. Example: dear Senator, or dear Senator Cruz, dear Senator Cornyn, or Representative Vela. So make sure that you because again, this is supposed to look like a real letter. Make sure to clearly state the reason for your concern for the issue in your letter. So again, if you're writing this letter to this member of Congress, you're going to have to get to the point, right? They have to be able to pick up really quickly in terms of why you're writing to them. So make sure that you clearly state what that reason is in terms of why you're contacting them through that letter on that day. Make sure that you fulfill the criteria listed at the beginning of this handout, which is what we just talked about, all those different steps. Make sure to point out your relationship to the legislator. For example, if you're their constituent, which again, that's why I encourage you all to write to your senator or your member of Congress, because again, it'll carry more weight if you are a constituent of them. And at the end of the letter, place your name, signature, and address. I mean, you can come up with a fake address. You don't have to put your actual one. I mean, it's so if you don't want to disclose that information, that's fine. You can just, because again, you're not really going to send it anyway. It's just a mock letter. Okay. So format, 12-point font, Times New Roman, single spaced, minimum 1,000 words, maximum 1,100 words. So make sure that you meet that, you hit that sweet spot between the 1,000 and the 1,100, because if you are less than 1,000, that's going to dock you points. If you're more than 1,100, that'll also dock you points. So make sure that you are within that range. And at the bottom of your letter, you should include your name and city. Okay. So we're about the due date. The due date is I need to change that. Basically, like I said, make sure that I would prefer for you all to turn this in on the Sunday before we end for the summer, which I believe is the calendar. We have class on. Wait a minute. No. That Sunday is the 5th. No. So I think I put it at the 6th. Yeah, I put the 6th because I didn't want you to turn in on that Sunday because that's the 4th of July. No, I don't want you all to be working on this on the 4th like that. Enjoy the 4th with your family, because I think it's starting to get to the point where we can hang out with our family again. So enjoy that day. So, and then the 5th, of course, we're off, to observe the July. So if you get it in by the 6th, that way that gives you enough time to grade it, then that would really be awesome. I mean, as long as you turn it in before the end of the semester, that's fine, because we're operating under soft deadlines. But I would prefer for you all to turn it in by this. Okay. So does anyone have any questions on that? Any questions or concerns or anything like that? And then of course, let's see. Anytime you copy something word for word, simply rephrasing, you must cite your source according to the APA format. If you use someone else's words and ideas without citing them, you are committing plagiarism and will receive an F. So again, make sure that you do cite your sources, because you probably will have some sources if you're going to be doing, because you do have to research this topic, right? So I'm not expecting like a research paper with like 10 sources. Okay, that's not what this is not what this is going to be. Oh goodness, no. Like I will be honest with you all. The thing that I disliked the most about grad school is research papers. Like I would rather take a test than do a research paper, because research papers are they're so daunting, and it's hard to get started. So I totally understand, So this is not a research paper. This is just, this is like I guess you could say like a fancy essay, so to speak. But I do expect for y'all to do your research. So if you are going, so when you do your research, yes, and if you do take some stuff from there, definitely do cite it, okay? And things like that. Let's see who's you know what I mean. So yeah, that's that. So okay. So anything. Okay. So and then of course has the student learning outcomes like we talked about before. Again, this letter is meant to show that you know about all of this, because again, you're going to be demonstrating all of this in the letter, explaining the origin and development of the constitutional democracy in the U.S., demonstrate knowledge of the federal system, describe separation of powers and checks and balances in both theory and practice, demonstrate knowledge of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the federal government, evaluate the role of public opinion, interest groups, and the political parties of the political system, analyze the election process, describe the rights and responsibilities of citizens, and analyze issues and policies in USA. So again, so these SLOs that we're responsible for covering and for you all to you all are demonstrating them in assignment. That's the point of the signature assignment, because the signature assignment is proof that you all are able to demonstrate these student learning outcomes. And then same thing with the core objectives here, that you're able to demonstrate critical thinking skills, communication skills, personal responsibility, as well as social responsibility. So don't worry about that, because if you complete the letter the way it's supposed to be, then you will be able to meet all of these requirements here. So okay, and that's it. Okay, and then of course we have the rubric here, which is basically the same thing. It talks about let's go to real quick. The rubric, you're going to see that it's exactly what we covered. The rubric, I want you all to follow the rubric, and we'll go through this. I think we like forget about it. But I'm going to make the rubric does dive into the cover. You're going to create it to show like what. Yeah. So yeah, what we were. Okay, so are there any questions or comments about something like that? Like so, or the not okay, I like it, but okay. Let me say I just
Sir, we can't hear you.
yeah, I think it was my show, okay, or okay. Can you hear me now or like my clear no or the whole okay.